Yeah, I think just he's a complete tailback. And, I think the thing for me that's so impressive is his ability to make all the runs, his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. Um, we've been fortunate in my time to be able to coach some really good running backs, and he's got all the qualities of what great running backs have the ability to do. And, he's been incredible for him. Obviously, any running back would tell you have to also have a really good offensive line. You have to have receivers willing to block for you, and he's got all those things happening for him at a really consistent rate as well. But he's a real talent, and it'll be a real challenge for us.
Matt, obviously there.
I just think for him, as any young player, to be able to finally apply that into a game setting and to be able to make that play in a game setting, those are big. And I obviously started there, and he was able to kind of finish off with a really good year a year ago. And I think that confidence really allowed him to go into this fall and really this off season and go to work with Brock. And I think what you've seen is those two have a really great connection in some critical moments, even at the early stages of this season so far.
Now, what's allowed freshmen to come into your system and find success?
Yeah, I would hope the biggest thing is the culture of our veterans and our leaders in this program. I think for young guys to be successful, especially in a program now where, 44th year in it, it's got to be one of those cultures that, they embrace the young players that come into the program. And, for us to be able to have some newcomers, whether it's the young players like Brees or LaMichael Petway or, some of these guys that are making impacts early, I think the culture's got to welcome you. And I would really tell you that I think that's the biggest thing that we're fortunate to have is our seniors, our leaders, our veterans. Whether you're a freshman or you're a senior, they're going to treat you the same way. And I think the respect of our kids know what we'll do every week is try to play the best players and the guys that are earning the right to play and get on the field. And so I think that openness and that culture has certainly helped those young guys step on the field with confidence and be able to play. Yeah, I felt like Brock has been, that's something that he's had a really, I think he's had a really keen ability to do that early in his career. And, I think obviously the better you're protecting it, the better you're going to have the ability to feel confident that you can continue to move through your reads and your progression. But, Brock's one of those guys, and I think it's shown early this season. That's why so many guys have so many different catches. He's got that unique ability to find where the open space is and get the ball where it needs to go. And, I think you make a great point that you got to have the ability and time to get there. But I do think that's something that makes Brock really special.
You talked a little bit about Brees's.
You got to remember this is think about what we're talking about on the offensive side. You're talking a true sophomore quarterback. You're talking about a running back position that's kind of still just sorting itself out, but now it's a true freshman. You're talking about really young wide receivers. And, when you talk about that, you're going to have to grow. It's not going to just happen. And I think that's where, that's part of the process of growing and building as a team. And, every year that's going to have to occur because you're going to lose good players and the next group is going to have to step up. And as much as you say, boy, they're ready to go in fall camp, I know I've said this a million times, until you step out under the lights, until you go through failure, the ebbs and flows of a game, and have the ability to respond to that. I think that's part of a growing process, and so I do think that's part of the offense's growing process a little bit is, finding out who, what, how, and really building from there. And I think that group's really done a nice job of building as this season's gone.
Okay, so we debated the randomness of turnovers a lot earlier in the year, and I look at Oklahoma State and they've turned it over a lot lately, but they're still scoring.
Right.
So does that make them
even more dangerous?
Yeah, if turnovers are random,
Yeah.
or if there's any truth to that at all, does that make them even more scary just because they're still scoring at this output, but they're giving up a lot of possessions?
I think, Christopher, you turn on the film and the sheer ability that jumps off the film. I mean, the receiving core led by one of the most dynamic receivers in college football right now, the running game, and then you see this super talented quarterback who you talk about a young player growing into his own. You almost see his evolution happening, elite arm strength, elite escapability, making elite plays with great consistency right now. And it's a dynamic as an offense as we face so far, and they're really impressive. And so I think when you have some of those elite playmakers, it gives you the ability to overcome maybe a bad bounce here or a bad situation here and continue to put yourself and your team in a really good situation to be successful, and they've been able to do that on the offensive side.
You talked a little bit about the growth.
Well, I think every season has its own journey, and yes, I really did. To me, that's college football, and it's certainly college football here, where you got to remember offensively, you lost two of the most prolific offensive players in the history of Iowa State football, and David Montgomery and Campbell. What stat did I saw? It was the first time in 30 years that a Iowa State player caught a touchdown in the NFL. Like, come on. So you lost two of those kind of guys, and then all of a sudden, you gotta start back over a little bit. And so I think it was going to be a process to get there, and it'll still be. It's not a finished made product by any stretch of the imagination. These are young players that are growing before our eyes, and the tribute is they've grown this fast, this quickly, to be quite honest with you. And it's been great to have an anchor of an offensive line, some of those veteran guys that have been back, but I think that's always going to be a challenge in terms of losing good players, and then that next group being ready to go, but having to go through I've always said this, I think you got to fail a little bit before you can really grow to become what you want to be, and that's just a natural growth pattern in my mind, and so I think those expectations were out there from my mind that was what it was going to look like and feel like, and it'll be fascinating to see where this group can be by the time the season ends. Can it make a couple of huge strides? And it'll have to if we want to be the best team we can be down the stretch run.
Depending on what metrics you look at, you guys are.
The differences are certainly great because you're just talking space, and I think that's what's unique about it's certainly our game today in college football is teams are going to make you play in space, and your ability to play in space, tackle in space, defend in space. Those are what's the difference usually between a really good football team and a really good defense, or a team that's maybe struggling a little bit on defense. And I think for us, that you're right, it says a lot about Mike Rose's ability, number one, to flip from inside to outside. You got to be a really good athlete. You got to have great awareness. And number three, you've got to have that ability to run sideline to sideline. Michael's got all those things. And his ability for the betterment of our team to go out there and really strengthen an area for us that maybe we didn't have that right answer to start the season. It was huge for our defensive team and certainly huge for our football team in general. And I think it's allowed us to take an area that maybe once was a little bit unsure and really strengthen an area for us and give us some really, really good play out at same linebacker.
Matt, can you share?
Yeah, I really probably don't remember much about it other than the fact of, the preparation that Brock put into, getting an opportunity to play and then watching him play. And, even you go back to that game, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I just think the preparation and detail that he put into his opportunity and then making the most of it was really big, at least for him, and then obviously became big for our team down the stretch a year ago. Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite part about Brock. I don't know if there's one difference in who and what he is as a human being today is than what he was, a year ago when he came onto our campus. And I think the greatest growth for him has certainly occurred in terms of growing as a quarterback, in terms of owning an offense and growing within the offense and having great leadership amongst his peers. But the same guy, the same person, the same preparation. He's the same guy today as he was a year ago when he came on this campus, and that's what makes him really special.
Charlie said it sounded like he wasn't very happy.
No, like Charlie thinks he's smarter than he is, but to be honest with you, I think what Charlie's done is he's added consistency to his game from the start of the season to where he is right now, and that's asking a lot. And he did some good things last week, and to be really honest with you, there's some other areas he needs to get better at. And I think one of the things about Charlie is he wants to be a really good football player. He's got a great understanding of the position, and yet he's still growing at it. You got to remember, this is a young man that was a wide receiver in high school, and has kind of learned how to become a really good tight end. And that growth pattern is still happening. But I think the best thing that's happened for him is from a year ago, and really even the spring to where he is right now, is the consistency of play has really started to show. And that part's really positive. And again, you're asking a position other than maybe quarterback. That's a really hard position to play. What you ask a tight end to do in a football game is more than probably everybody else in the football field. You got to block, you got to know the run game, you got to know the pass game, and the intricacies of all those things are challenging. And Charlie's certainly working really hard to become a good, consistent player at those spots. Yeah, I certainly think it's certainly a change. And, it's fascinating because I think what defensive football has changed, and, thinking back to just, me getting into this profession, everybody was defending everybody from the inside out. They were 4 down, you were going to stop the run and you were going to defend everybody from the inside out. Well, I think that evolution has changed greatly over the last 12, 13, 14 years to where now everybody wants to defend you from the outside in. And how that happens, whether it's a 3 down front or a 4 down front, people really are putting that approach to defending, offensive football. And I think you almost have to today with the ability of these offenses to spread you, play vertical through the passing seams. And so I think it's certainly been a great change. And again, if you're not multiple in how you attack people defensively, I think that's a real challenge too. And if you're going to just do the same thing consistently, I think that's really hard, to be able to be really good on defense. I think there's got to be a sense of multiplicity in what you do. And I think that's the other thing you see a lot of people doing is a lot of different things. And, I look at our opponents the last couple of weeks and even up into this week, and the first thing that comes to mind is, man, multiple, doing a lot of things. And so, I think the game's changing a lot and has made great change over the last 2 years, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, we talked about.
I think our special teams in general has taken some really positive strides through this season. I think the area for us that's still left out there is just the consistency in our kicking game. And, I feel like we're really close to that. I think we've had some really positive moments, and we've had a couple moments where you feel like, man, we want to be a little bit better and more consistent there than we need to be. But we're really fortunate to have some great kids that are really working hard at it, and I think we're really close to being what we want to be there.
Piggybacking off that, something you can commend this young offense on at this point through the season is how they've been able to step up in those critical moments, especially in the fourth quarter, and continue to put up points, either helping you stay in a game or helping you pull away in a game that you should win. What does that say about the way that they approach those critical moments in that fourth quarter?
Yeah, again, I think a lot of that stems from the mindset of our quarterback. He's a guy that he wants to win the football game, and he's kind of got that drive and that moxie to understand the situation. Also, be smart enough to not put the team in a dangerous situation, but to be, courageous enough to make the hard play and make the tough play. And so, I think when you have some of that moxie, that really helps everybody around you, know how you want to play offensive football. So I think a lot of it stems from him.
Where
Connor's been our guy, and if it was from depth or distance, the last couple of games we kind of went with Braden, so I think pretty similar, and Braden earned his right to do it because of how he practiced in terms of that depth and that distance. And so I think we'll continue to see, but Connor's definitely still our kicker, and we'll kind of see how that situation continues to play out in practice. But like I said, we're fortunate to have two guys that have two really unique, different skill sets a little bit, but unique for sure.